Welcome everyone to this month's edition of QB Talk. My name is Bill Murphy. Almost everybody knows me as Murph. I'll be your host for today. Gary's hanging around somewhere and he'll be visiting with you about our sponsors and also tossing out the polling questions. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm an advanced certified QuickBooks Pro advisor serving about 700 clients in 7 states for my practice based in Oklahoma City. I'm also the senior editor for Insightful Accountant. Today's webinar is being presented by William English. I think most people know him as Will, and he'll be presenting a product review on QuickBooks Point of Sale powered by Revel systems. Will was one of the first people who went through Intuit's training on the QB POS powered by Revel, even prior to its formal release. He also went on to go to Revel headquarters for more in-depth training on every aspect of the product. So as with QuickBooks Point of Sale Desktop, Will is a guru in Intuit's line of point of sale software. If you're not set to attend Scaling New Heights at Atlantis in the Bahamas this May 22nd through 25th, then you're not prepared to turn your pro advisor or accounting and bookkeeping firm into an epic practice. There'll be hundreds of courses, seminars, and workshops covering everything from QuickBooks certification exam preparation to specialized practice considerations, from technical topics to practice management. There'll be more than 1,000 pro advisors attending, and more than 100 Intuit executives, product managers, and program directors present to answer your questions. Damon John, one of the sharks from the hit television series Shark Tank, will be among the keynote speakers. And yes, I'll be teaching no less than 5 sessions, including a first ever session on troubleshooting QBO errors. It's not too late to attend this impactful and fun in the sun conference. It's going to be the conference for all conferences for QuickBooks Pro advisors, so you'll want to be there. And Gary has a polling question if you want more information about Scaling New Heights.
All right, we're going to get this shut down in about 3 to 5 more seconds here. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Thank you for participating.
As with all of our webinars, we have a sponsor. That's how we bring them to you. And today's sponsor is Avalara. So Gary, will you tell the folks a little about Avalara?
Absolutely. Avalara provides an end-to-end sales tax compliance model via automation. Instead of researching rates, building tax tables, and implementing tax processes, companies simply install a software connector that links their accounting and ERP system to Avalara's web service. As a cloud software, it continuously updates tax rates, rules, and boundaries automatically. And as a sponsor, Avalara is offering a white paper on how sales tax affects your business, and we will pop up another polling question here as well. You can just say yes, you'd like to receive this, or no, you would not, but we certainly want to say thanks to Avalara. And if you have clients with who process sales tax, this is a good tool to help them do that, to automate it, and help them free up to run their business and not worry about processing sales tax. We'll get this for another 5 more seconds. 2 and 1. We're going to go ahead and close this out. Thank you for participating.
And we're also going to be holding a web seminar on April 28th on the subject of sales tax. Gary, you want to throw the poll open about that seminar?
Absolutely. I lost my poll here. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's coming up on April the 28th, and it is have your clients back for sales tax compliance for QuickBooks users. And if I can find the right link here, here we go. All right, and this poll is up, and if you would like to attend or like to get some information on it, we'll certainly, what we'll do is you say yes to that poll, we'll add you manually to the list, and then you will receive an email with your information, with login information for this event. And I thought we'd have a pretty good acceptance of this one since we're on a POS web seminar. It seems like it certainly should be relevant for most people here. So we're going to leave this open for about another 8 seconds here. So if we can, go ahead and move on to the meat of the web seminar. Go ahead and get this closed out in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Thank you so much.
So we've got a couple of polling questions before we actually get started, and these polls relate to your practice and whether you currently support point-of-sale products. So the first question is, do you presently support or are you certified in QuickBooks point-of-sale for desktop? Gary, will you throw that poll open?
All right, we've gotten to our magic number of 80% here, so we're going to go ahead and close that out, and I will share those results with you. So roughly 50% are supporting or certified in QuickBooks POS Desktop.
Okay, and the next poll we have concerns point-of-sale powered by Revel. We're interested in knowing if you presently are working with POS powered by Revel or if you just have an interest. And so, Gary, throw that poll open.
All right, we're going to get this closed out in about 3 more seconds here, and then I will share the results with you as well. Here we go. 17% yes, 83% not at this time.
Okay, so it seems as though most of you are here to find out more about POS powered by Revel because you're currently not dealing with it. And we certainly do have the expert on hand regarding POS powered by Revel. So I want to remind everybody that if you have questions during today's webinar, type those into the questions pane of the GoToWebinar control panel. If possible, we'll attempt to open or answer your questions. I'm going to be trying to do that. And since I don't know everything there is to know about Revel, there will probably be questions to answer. Some of those we'll be throwing open live to Will towards the end of today's webinar. Some of the others we may have to answer directly via email, and we'll be happy to do that. So I want everybody to welcome Will English. Will is president of English Management Solutions located in San Diego. His company's been serving clients across the United States, including Hawaii, since 2002. He's certified in QuickBooks and QuickBooks Point of Sale, as well as QuickBooks Enterprise and QuickBooks Online. And as I mentioned, he also was among the first individuals certified in QuickBooks Point of Sale powered by Revel. And he also is a member of the Intuit Reseller Program and the Revel Certified Resellers. Will is the author of numerous articles and text on point of sale and retail business operations, including his just-released handbook, The Essential Guide to Taking Physical Inventory, which describes best practices for using QuickBooks Point of Sale and portable data collection terminals when conducting a physical inventory. Most of you probably know that Will's written several articles for Insightful Accountant. He's a member of the Intuit Writer Trainer Network, and we consider him our resident guru in all things point of sale. I hope all of you on today's webinar will join me in welcoming Will English to the webinar. Will, take it away.
Thanks, Murph. I really appreciate that, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to share my expertise on being able to talk about what is Revel and what it isn't, and share kind of some of my findings, some of the things that I've worked with and worked through, and also, take in all the feedback that you all have. And if it's something that I can answer, then we'll do that. If it's something that I can't, then I'll also take notes and make sure that we get those answers back to you. So let's see now. I'm going to show my screen, and let's go into presenter mode. And then just want to confirm, Murph, you all see my slides?
We definitely can.
Excellent. So what is Revel? Bottom line is that it was founded back in 2010. There were two founders, and interestingly enough, they wanted to develop a web app to help a restaurant. And when they started looking at the technology of the in the restaurant space and the legacy, the Micros is probably the major player, Aloha is another one. They realized that really the application was the smallest part of the issue. It was truly the point of sale system that needed fixing. So they established a iPad-based point of sale. And the nice thing about this, unlike a lot of other tablet-based solutions, is that they've found a way to be able to put the database onto the tablet as well as onto the cloud. So the idea is that you get the best of both worlds. You have the ability to have the tablet run, and even in offline mode, we'll talk a little bit more about that and some of the advantages of that. And then also all of the changes, everything that's gone on the tablet, or if you're in the back-end console, which we'll show you in a bit, those all sync. So the idea is that whether I'm working locally, whether I'm working in the cloud, I have the best of both worlds. Back, as Murph mentioned, Intuit had announced QB Connect. In fact, it was funny. We were all of us are under non-disclosure as resellers, but they actually made us sign an additional non-disclosure before they all took us in the room and talked to us about the new partnership they have. So Revel is an independent company, and Intuit now has a branded solution that is called QuickBooks Point of Sale powered by Revel, and that launched in March of 2015. And as Murph mentioned, I actually had the opportunity to go to San Francisco in December of 2014 and work with them and get to be one of the first certified, as well as attending the training. This is a unique product in that at this point there is no Pro Advisor certification. There's nothing that you can do as a Pro Advisor to get trained. You actually have to become a certified reseller, which anyone can do. There's training to do that. And we'll talk about some ways that you can partner with people that have more expertise in Revel if you have someone that you have that you think is a good fit. The other interesting thing about this compared to a lot of the others, and when I talk about other tablet solutions, I'm talking about the Breadcrumbs, the Lightspeeds, even Square on the low end. So those are all tablet-based solutions. the cool thing about Revel is what they did is they looked at they're a very technology savvy company, and rather than running on this standard 2.4 megahertz Wi-Fi network that everyone basically runs on, you go into any of your local coffee shops and you connect to their router. Basically, you're dealing with that technology. What they've done is they've actually used a different frequency, and the reason that they've done that is that they feel that it is more secure and that there's less traffic. Now, some of the challenges of that is that that frequency means that there's less range, and so one of the things that we talk about when we partner is that this is something that is a very hands-on. You need to get kind of really into the depth of the technology and figure out, okay, what does the location look like? Well, in fact, I went out to a restaurant and I took pictures of all of the various nooks and crannies so that I could make sure that I could go back and give an appropriate quote. Ideally, you'd even want a floor plan so that you can decide where to put the access points, because basically what happens is the iPad, the register, if you will, is it's a wireless device and it needs to connect, and so we use a different frequency and we use the Revel routers to be able to do that. So why do we want to do Revel? Intuit looked at a lot of different solutions and they chose Revel, and they chose it for some of the reasons we talked about, the technology. Also, they've got now a seamless integration with the QBO, and one of the things that they heard very clear and very often when they were doing the training is that not everyone wanted to go to QuickBooks Online. So I think it was about 6 months ago they launched their desktop integration. So even if you're using the Revel product, which obviously is in the cloud, you can also install a desktop connector, and then that would send the Revel information into QuickBooks Desktop. So this always-on mode is something that's really pretty critical and one of the differentiators in this product. What that means is that you can process credit cards. It will store the information if the internet goes out. So for example, I lose connection to the internet. Normally in the QuickBooks Desktop product, I'm basically calling in and I'm getting authorization codes over the phone, and that's really painful. With Revel, you actually have the opportunity to set it so that it goes in offline mode and it'll still store the credit card information. Now, you do have certain protections there. So for example, you can set it so that you can say, I only want to take an offline transaction only up to $50, let's say. And I also want to control the overall by saying that I don't want to take any more than maybe $1,000 in offline mode. So both of those come into effect. So if you have a sale that's more than $50, it will not process it. And if you've exceeded that $1,000 threshold, then you can go ahead and it will stop processing. And I'll show you on the tablet how you can go in and you can look at the what's been processed in offline mode. And additionally, you have to consider that because you're in offline mode and you're swiping the card, it doesn't necessarily mean that that transaction would be approved. And so if you come back online, you can also look and see which transactions are declined. So it's a matter of risk management. And the other thing that the Revel has done is in places, for example, they did the Indianapolis 500. They had tablets where they could go and you could take sales. Is they put those all into offline mode, and so that way I'm just swiping cards and I'm not having to wait for it to go out and talk to the merchant processor and come back and get that approval code. So it actually speeds up the service. Now, of course, there is a certain amount of risk in that, but the idea is that if I'm in a busy time in my bar or I'm in a food truck and I have a line out down the street, I want to be able to take those orders very quickly. So I force myself to go into offline mode, and then I'm just sitting there and I'm ringing up sales, bang, 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 bang. So other nice thing about this is they have 24/7 support. So unfortunately, the QuickBooks desktop product, they don't, and retailers, I deal with retailers all day long, and honestly, you get retailers that are, they need support on a Sunday or a Monday night at midnight, and so Revel does support that. It's coming out of the gate, it's PCI compliant, and so it has the highest levels of compliance. And the one really cool thing that I like is the fact that you can actually log into the console, which we'll show you in a bit, and you can look and see sales in real time. So the idea, with a lot of my desktop clients, we've had to install Log Me In or go to my PC so that they can log in and take a look at it, or they'll print out the ZL report, they'll scan it, and they'll go ahead and have to do it that way. Honestly, with this, you get the ability to be able to look at it and even update your menus, your items, you can receive, you can do all of that stuff from the back-end console, and then basically synchronize with the online. So let's talk about what we should be considering for the QuickBooks Revel. Because they came kind of out of that quick serve and hospitality market, they are really very, very good at this. Quick serve restaurant for a yogurt shop, they support a scale integration, juice bars, sandwich shops, and I'm going to show you, the demo that I'm going to show you is more related to the food. In addition, service and light retail, hair salons, nail salons, they actually have a scheduling app, so that you can have it up on the website, that you can say when the stylist is available, and people can book their appointments online, and it syncs back to the terminal. So ideal for that sort of thing. To be honest, and I'm nothing if not honest, the heavy retail is not something that we currently are recommending Revel for. But even that, you have to look at the specific situation. If you have a retailer that has a smaller number of items that are larger tickets, this could be a good fit. We've also, there are vape shops where this could be a good fit. It really has to be considered, but there are some challenges with, for example, if I had a woman's boutique or something, unfortunately at this point, there's no way really to print tags from the back-end console where I would be doing my receiving. I would have to actually go to the iPad and do that there. So for that reason, we are not currently suggesting that that's necessarily a really good fit there. That being said, Intuit has heard, and they have made great strides in the last year, and they continue to make those strides. Every quarter, they come out with a new major release, and they're constantly fixing other things. That is one of the benefits to a cloud product, is that you can go in and you can do things, and you don't have to roll out a software release necessarily. But they have major releases once a quarter, and they have a list of things and a roadmap to fix all of this stuff. Food trucks I already mentioned before. The cool thing about Revel is it also has the ability to embed all of your social media right into the tablet. You can tell it the URL for your Facebook or your Twitter account. And so while you're at a location, you can go ahead and tweet your next location right from the tablet. You don't have to go in and log in. So very cool for that. Pizza, actually, and this is all for all food service, is that you can put your menu online and people can order, and they can do, half this and half that and all of that. They also have delivery management. So the idea is with a pizza restaurant that you have delivery, or any food delivery. They have a food delivery application which will route. You can tell where your delivery locations are, and you can route the drivers, and you can set up virtual tills for them. So again, it's a very robust feature set. Bar and table service restaurants, same sort of thing. You can open up tabs in a bar. One of the cool things about that is, and I live in downtown San Diego in the Gaslamp district, so it's a arts and entertainment district. I can, office, I can get to any one of 100 restaurants in a 10-minute walk. So in most situations, when you go to open a tab at a bar, you have to actually swipe the card, and they keep the card. with Revel, again, because of the ability for this offline processing, you can swipe a card, hand it back to the customer, and close out the tab from that card. You don't necessarily have to retain the cards. And so that, I think that that's really a nice benefit. And with table service, they actually do have the ability to set up the complete restaurant, have all the layout. They have timers on tables. They have the ability to support expedited kitchen displays so that you can go in. And so, again, these are really where primarily my focus is right now, is to go after these. We recently did a car wash where similar sort of thing, and they even have the ability, Revel has something called a mobile order taker. So the car wash has the ability to not only have a register, but they can have people walking up with tablets, and they can take the sales right there, and they can go ahead and process that. So when you think about line busting, that's an opportunity too, and where you can walk up to someone, kind of, the Apple experience where you walk up to someone in the store and you can actually ring out from there. So the Revel product has the ability to do that. So I'm really, really excited about the potential of this, and I'm even excited about what it does today. Most of my client base is in the retail, so I'm now having to kind of learn the whole hospitality industry, but hey, who doesn't like to eat and drink? So I have a lot of clients where, we do trade-outs and things, so who knows, maybe I'll have a pizza restaurant or a bagel shop that I can do some trade-out with. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually log in, and I'm going to show you the iPad. I use a software called Reflector 2. So if anyone wants to get serious about being able to sell and support the Revel product, we recommend that you go ahead and buy and install the Reflector 2. What that allows, now, if you're an Apple house to begin with, then you have the ability to go ahead and have that, it's built in, but I'm using Windows, and so you need another piece of software to do that. I think I'm actually going to have to go out of presentation mode to be able to do this. So there we go. Yep. All right. Let's make sure everyone can see my my tablet. Yes, Murph, we good?
Yes, we can
Okay,
see your
cool.
tablet.
Yay, okay. And you can see the AirPlay. So basically what I did is I went into the AirPlay, which is a function of the iPad. Believe me, I was not an Apple guy. When Intuit said, you guys are going to be all selling iPads and whatnot, I actually had to go buy my first iPad just so I could support this product. So it's been a bit of a learning curve, but the Mirror product is a very good product, and it allows you to broadcast basically your tablet up onto the screen. And so as you can see, I've got my computer, and I just turn on the mirroring mode, and then from there I'm just going to go back. So this is what would be what the customer would have in the location. And notice a couple of things. Down at the lower left, all payments are sent to the payment processor, all orders are sent to the server. So when we talked about the offline mode, the idea is that if there are any payments that are in offline mode, that they would show up there. Same with the server, I'm sorry, the orders themselves, is that if things are waiting to be queued, it would be sitting there. Now the queuing pretty much happens automatically within a minute or two, and so there's really no problem there. But you can always hit this refresh button, and that does two things, is it syncs you up with the server, and also any changes that are come down with the server, then you can do that. We have the ability to clock in and clock out. So the idea is if I've got employees, I can have them clocking in before they even actually log into the system. The nice thing about that is that you can set rules around that. For example, you can tell the system, don't allow anyone to clock in prior to minutes to the beginning of their shift. So that's kind of cool. That's a nice feature that you can enforce scheduling. And actually, as we get into the back-end console, I'll show you that there is some pretty robust scheduling techniques. The other nice thing about the clock in is you can actually set it to use the camera in the iPad to take a picture of who's clocking in. If anyone that's worked with retailers or restaurants or whatnot, is that there's this concept of buddy punching, right? So someone calls up their friend and says, you know, I'm running 15 minutes behind, can you punch me in? So with this, you can actually take a picture. Now, there's no facial recognition. It doesn't go and say, oh, heck, this isn't so-and-so, so I'm not going to let them log in. But in fact, it does take a picture. That picture is stored, and so the owner can go back and look at it and say, that's not right. So, okay. So we're going to go ahead and clear, and then everyone that logs in has a unique PIN that they do. And this is what the base application looks like. Now this top menu, this can be configured so that it can go in several different ways. What I have it set now is to have a tiering. I can also set the menu so it would have menu, and then I would have all my various categories under that, and then below that I would have my actual items. In this case, and that's all configurable. The nice thing about this is that unlike the QuickBooks desktop product, that's what you see is what you get, and we can kind of play with some things with this. I can make the menus look exactly how I want them to do to support my business. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click on burgers, and it gives me a list of all the various burgers. I'm going to say create my own. What that does is it gives me the ability to step through what are called modifiers. So in the food service industry, you have quite a bit of variability. So the idea is in this case, I'm doing a build my own burger. So I actually have to go through and select each of them. As I select one, it automatically skips to the next modifier. That's a setting that you can create, and you can control that behavior. So I can say, and notice that I also have the ability to click on in something that would have an upcharge. So in this case, the gluten-free bun has an upcharge of $1. And for whatever reason, my screen is not refreshing, because on the tablet I'm seeing that I've gone to my cheese. So let's give it a moment. Murph, do we have any questions while we're waiting?
Yes, no? In fact, yes. Since you're talking about restaurant at the moment, I just had a question that was asked regarding can orders be separated into like two kitchens, one for a hot kitchen and one for a cold kitchen? I can see, absolutely, for example, maybe in a sushi restaurant, you might be sending the sushi order over to the sushi chefs and hot food order back to the kitchen.
Absolutely. So you can designate on the back-end console every item and where it's going to be sent. And the Revel product will support both kitchen printers and kitchen displays. So the idea is that I could have my salad station, I could have my bar, I could have my hot station, and I could, from the console, I would go ahead and say, okay, I'm ordering a salad. It would go ahead and either print or show up on the kitchen display in the cold station versus the hot station. So that's absolutely built in, and you would show it and you would tell it, you know, that that's what happens. Okay, so my technology is now caught up. So basically now I'm skipping to cheese, and I'm going to pick Swiss cheese, and then I'm going to go to topping. And I'm having a little bit of a challenge with the refresh, and so on my tablet it's going much quicker, but we'll deal with the technology, so it'll show up. I've run into this occasionally with the reflector where I've got a little bit of a lag, so I've gotten very good about trying to fill in kind of the gaps to talk about some of the other technology, because on my screen, actually I'm looking at something different than what it's showing right now. So we'll wait for it to skip over to the toppings. So the idea here is that, and I'm going to show you on another, so I did the create your own burger because I can pick and choose each one of them. However, you can set up default modifiers where you can go in and go ahead. And so this now, I have placed the create your own burger onto my screen. So let's talk about the Cali burger. So if I go in and choose that, notice that it automatically selected for me all of the things that it thought that a Cali burger should have on it. But the cool thing about that is I can go back. I select it by clicking on it, and I can go in to edit my modifiers. So again, if for whatever reason they didn't want the Cali burger with the sesame seed bun, they wanted it with a pretzel bun, I can choose to do that. And so, and then basically I'm going to update the order. And so it's just that simple. In addition, and I'll wait for that to update, is that when we go back to the main screen, is that we have the ability to add and subtract. So if I want one or more of the orders, then I can do that. So down at the bottom, I have this send order, hold order. Holding an order is similar to like you would find in the QuickBooks desktop product if you work with that. Notice up at the very top, I have now held orders, today's orders. One thing that I think is really pretty cool here is that I can find orders by a credit card, so I can actually go in and look at and swipe the credit card information, and it'll find the order. But I'll go ahead and go back to my held order. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and go back to it. And so there's the order that we just were starting. When I say send order, that's when the magic you talk about, what does it go to a kitchen? Does it go to hot? Does it go to cold? That's where that happens. Down at the bottom here, I have the ability to, and these buttons are customizable. So for example, if I wanted to add, this is a takeout order. So I'm going to go dining options, and it's takeout. And so there's actually a service fee for that. I can choose to add the service fee. In this case, I don't have any service fees set up, but I can go ahead and do a manual one. And I can say that I'm going to add 5% to the order, and tax and all of that, post-tax, etc. So, oops, reason. Yep, there is a reason. So, but again, this is something where I can go in and I can actually tell it and have those pre so that I can choose the reason. Similarly, if I want to discount the order, this would be an example of where I've got a reason where I'm going to go ahead and discount it because it's an employee order. So now I got to go pay for it, right? And so I'm going to hit the pay button. By the way, I can set up what are called quick payment buttons. So quick cash, quick credit card. And so if I were to select a quick cash button, it would go ahead and automatically tender $20. And it would know, okay, I know that I'm going to do that. Again, the whole idea is we want to speed the sales transaction. No one wants to, be having to write out something or having to go and try to click on something. So if we can automate the process as much as possible, we can go ahead and do that. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead in this case. I don't have it set up for credit card processing. Basically, it would use the QuickBooks merchant account that you would connect to in the QBO. It uses the same merchant account that you would set up for QBO. So that's nice because then now you don't have to worry about trying to batch or trying to figure out any of that. It flows into QBO just as if it were a transaction in QBO. I'm going to go ahead and select Credit Plus, which is where I could go ahead and set up all various other types of payments. Notice I even have one that is called Trade and House Account and whatnot. But I'll just go ahead and select a MasterCard. Choose that. I have the ability to add a tip. So choose that. I'm going to be pretty generous with these people. Notice that I also have a button to email, so I can email the receipt to people. And so the one cool thing about this is that, so I have the tablet here, and I don't know if you all have experienced like Square or any of those others where they have to swing around while I can do that, the Revel products also supports a customer-facing display. So the customer is seeing all that you're doing at the same time that you're doing it, and they can sign the customer-facing display. They can do the tips. They can do all of that. So now I'm done tendered, and so basically I'm done. Okay. So that's taking the sale. Are there any questions about that? And then I know we went over it pretty quickly, but obviously we only have a few limited time, and I want to make sure that people get the full experience.
Will, let me interject one question that came in that
Sure.
I didn't have any idea about, and that is, if you're taking drink recipes, does that
Yes.
actually relieve the inventory for the particular alcoholic products?
Yes, you do have the ability to set ingredient recipes on the back end, and it would say, okay, yes, I'm doing for a drink, and I've got a lime, and it would actually take and say, okay, I'm using a quarter, an eighth, or a 16th of a lime, and it would relieve the inventory by that. You do have the ability to do that. Of course, you do now have the overhead of having to set up all the ingredients and all the recipes and doing, and then truly, because you know, how many slices of avocado are you going to use in that Cali burger? So you then now have to commit to doing the physical inventory, but it is absolutely capable of doing that. And you can set up ingredients and recipes and all that. So let me go ahead and turn off the mirroring, and then we'll go in and I'll show you the back-end console. So let me go, hang on. I did want to show one more thing, and I know we're kind of running a little short on time to make sure that we're getting question and answer time. So, but let me, I wanted to show one other thing. And let's see, hang on here. Maybe not. Okay. So in addition to all the menus and all that, I have quite a bit of functionality under the gear icon here. So I'm clicking on the gear icon, and then I'm choosing, in this case, and again, I'm having a bit of a delay, so I have the ability to set tills, and I'm not going to go into each of these various functions because I do want to show the back-end console, but I have the ability to run reports. The manager, it gives me the ability to set up certain functionality, and that's where I would control my clock in and clock out behaviors. Sales summary would be a reports. I can get various reports. Till management, in fact, I'll go into sales summary there. So the idea is I can go in and I can look at a report based on hourly. Labor tracking, I can set my labor rates. I can do all of that. So I have the ability to do that. And then in the till management, I can manage up to 2 tills, clock in, clock out. It supports loyalty. It supports, anyways, so there's a whole ton of stuff under here we don't have time to get into, but I did want to cover that. So I'm going to go ahead and log out now, and then I'll turn the tablet off, and then we'll go to the back end. Okay. All right. So this is the back end console, and the idea here is basically I have a ton of different demos, so I'm going to go ahead and go to this one, and it's refreshing. So that's that sale that I just took. It shows up real time, so I can log in. This can be any web browser. I can do it on the tablet. I can do it from my house. I can do it from the beach in the Bahamas. I can do it from anywhere. So that's the beauty of this product, is that the back-end console has the ability to look at things real time. So under my reports, I have a ton of different reports. I will say that I've got a certain amount of customization I can do here, but not necessarily the same sort of customization that you'd find in the QuickBooks products and whatnot. But I do have operations, hourly sales. I've got product mix, so it'll tell me, you know, when I'm selling and how quickly. I do have the ability to do some certain filtering and by POS workstation, by the employee, so I have the ability to do a certain amount of this. Product mix is, that's essential. So the idea here is what am I selling and when. And then the other reports, we talked about the ingredient, so that's where I would get into being able to run reports, ingredients, inventory summary, inventory ingredient log, all of that, product inventory. So those are all the various reports. Employee profit, that's a great one. So it's just a whole host of reports that I have here. So let's jump into the
Will,
products.
let me interject while you're there.
Sure.
Somebody asked a question, and it may be just specific to their installation, but they said they were really having problems with getting reports in a timely manner, that it just seemed to take forever for reports to compile. Have you seen that problem?
I have not seen that problem. Now, I will tell you that I did not sell this client, but Intuit did. It was an art supply store, and they imported their entire product catalog, 35,000 SKUs. Now, Revel will handle up, they've told us 500,000 SKUs, but I have seen that the fact that they have that many SKUs, it does take longer. It takes longer to synchronize the items to the, so it's possible that the person is basically, they have put in, you know, and I don't know what the right answer is for that in terms of the number of SKUs, is that I'm telling people based on some of the operational issues and the, not even performance, but just the receiving process and whatnot, that I really don't want to handle many more than 500 to 1,000 SKUs. So it's possible that they just have, you know, 10, 15, 20,000 SKUs, and then the reports just take a while to generate. I have seen that with that client. So as you can see, my reports, as I click through, they're running pretty quick, but of course I have almost nothing in here. So, right? So I go in and hourly sales and whatnot. So, and those are some of the things that Intuit is aware of, and they're working with Revel on. So believe me, this is a work in progress. That being said, though, this is truly the future of point of sale for QuickBooks. They are focused and dedicated on making this whole thing work, and I see the promise of it. I really am excited for the future. We've needed to have a product refresh, and obviously the cloud is where Intuit is focusing all their efforts. Okay, so we go on to the products, and then from here, the categories, and then this would be where I would set up all the various things that I have. Cost, I can set up a standard cost, or I can also set up a dynamic cost. A dynamic cost, again, is if I'm using a recipe and the prices change on things. Otherwise, it's just every time that I sell a BLT, it's going to cost it at, this modifiers is this button here, and then I can copy modifiers. So the idea is I can set that up once, and then I can copy it. And then if I want to go in and actually edit the product, then you go in and do that. So there's a ton of stuff here. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with this, but I do want to point out that product class is something that's different than what you think of the class in QuickBooks. Product class is for reporting purposes, so we need to pay attention to that and make sure that if we want to have certain reports that we go ahead and do that. I will tell you, though, that the kitchen printer we talked about, all of that, that's where this is controlled. So the idea is I can tell it which printer that I want this particular burger to go to, since that was a question. Jumping into inventory, this would be where we would go ahead, and I caution people about making changes here because basically the way that and if I need to, I click on this Show All Actions button. This gives me the ability to receive. However, it's kind of like QuickBooks, if point of sale. If I go in and I just simply change the quantity, you know, bad things happen in my accounting. So that's the same thing here. So the idea is that if we're truly going to go in through the receiving process, then I want to go in. And in this particular instance, I don't have POs turned on because it's a food, but I do have ingredients. I have transfers. So if in fact, I'll go real quick to my retail demo so I can show you the PO process. Give it some time, Will. It's all good. So retail, go. Right, so now you can see that I've got purchase orders, I have reorder points, I can set reorder points on things. Employees would be where I would control, you know, who does what. I have roles and permissions, and the cool thing about the roles and role permissions is that I can assign different roles to different people at different times and have them have different payment schedules. scheduling, so I have the ability to set up schedules for employees. I can actually email these schedules to them. They can approve them or reject them, so that's kind of a cool feature. CRM, so the idea is if I'm having loyalty and wanting to track that, I can go ahead and do that. And then the settings is where we would do our QuickBooks integration. So I'll show you that very quickly. And by the way, Murph, how are we doing question-wise? Because I did want to leave some time at the end, but I also don't want to finish up and not have any questions, right? So.
Well, we've got about 3 questions that I have pulled, so
okay.
A couple of them may take you a little while.
Okay. Okay.
I've been able to answer more questions than I really anticipated being able to answer. So.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'm good. See, it's and truly, it's with anything. The more you're in it, the better off you are. The more experience you get with it, then the easier that it becomes. So, but what I did want to show is that we've got the basic POS settings and advanced settings. And so the idea here, again, we talked about the social networking, that you would go ahead and put that in there. You have the ability to log out after so many seconds, reports, password control. So, and then the other part that I wanted to show is, again, we have integration with online. We have integration with payments, and we have desktop integration, and this is where you would set that up. And then basically once you do the integration, then it opens up a whole nother screen where you would then put in and say, okay, where do I want these various accounts to post to and whatnot. And as I said, one of the strengths of this application is it uses the QuickBooks payment account, and so then the reconciliation is pretty straightforward. Trying to think into receipts, so this would be where I would control what the receipt looked like and whether or not I even want to print receipts or not. And then down below, if I wanted to, anyway. So there is a ton of stuff here. I just scratched on the surface, but as I said, this is truly the future of point of sale for QuickBooks. That's why when Murph and I were talking, I just wanted to get you all out in front of this and be able to take a look at it. And for those that need to, where you have a solution, where you have a customer where you think this is a good solution, we'll take a few minutes to talk about that. So currently, as I said, there is no way for a pro advisor to get directly involved with Revel. What you have to do is you have to become an Intuit reseller, and then not even all resellers are certified. Out of the community, so there's, I believe, 700 resellers, of which about 250 of them are called premier resellers, meaning that they meet certain revenue goals. And then of those, another 100 or so, 150 have gone through the Revel certification. And of those, maybe another 25, 30 have really done anything with the product. So what I'm going to offer to everyone is that if there's interest, if you want to know more about the Revel product, or you want to dig in deep, or if you have someone that you think can benefit from this, get a hold of Murph, get a hold of me, and we'll go ahead and filter those. If it's something that we need a local on-site, someone, feet on the street, so to speak, I have a list of people that I feel comfortable with that have enough of the product knowledge to be able to do this. Otherwise, it's a cloud product. I've now sold this in 3 or 4 different states. So I'm more than happy to help out, or I can get, I'm all about spreading the wealth as well. I can get you in touch with someone that's a reseller. And if you truly think that this is something that, if you already kind of specialize in restaurant accounting and you say, hey, maybe I should add this to my portfolio, it's relatively easy to get signed up as what's called an authorized reseller. You can actually just go in, and I forget the URL, but I'll get that to Murph and we can get that out there. You just sign up, and then you're a reseller, and then you have access to all of that. To get to the next level, you have to meet certain revenue goals, And then as an authorized reseller, you have to sell through. You don't have as much support from Intuit, I'll say it. As a premier reseller, then you have dedicated support inside of QuickBooks. And so with that, I know that our time is getting short, Murph, so I will pass it back over to you and see if you said that there were a few tougher questions.
Right. Gary, if you'll pass me back the ball. So, sorry, I thought I had my screen where it needed to be, and I don't. So if you do want to speak to somebody directly about point of sale powered by Revel, Gary, if you'll throw up that poll, and while you're got that poll up, Will, I'll ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
One was posed by Woody, and he wanted to know how you deal with potential customers who are concerned about only being the product only being iPad-based.
Well, yeah, that's actually a good point, because not only is it iPad-based, but you need to source everything through Revel to have the appropriate support. Revel will allow you to bring your own iPad, but they will not support it if you have a problem. Honestly, like I said, I was not an iPad guy, but truly, you know, that's the direction that they've gone. And so if someone's concerned about, hey, it's an iPad solution, it may not be the best solution for them. There's several out there that are Android-based, and you know, so that's just a choice that Revel made back in the day. The interesting thing is that Revel is actually, I was on a call the other day, and they are, I want to say, in the top 20 resellers of iPads for Apple. And in fact, my understanding is at some point they're going to be in the Apple stores in a kiosk, and you know, kind of as Apple's preferred point-of-sale provider. So that's kind of cool. But no, sorry, iPad only. And that's and again, the other thing that I talked about is that there's certain functionality on the iPad that I think should be on the back-end console, and we're working with Intuit on that.
Okay. The next was a really interesting question in which someone posed, if you have both a cafe and a shop, and it made me think of these Cracker Barrel restaurants, could
Absolutely.
you use Revel powered by the Revel product to deal with the cafe, but still use the old desktop point of sale to deal with your little shop and what you were selling over there? And then point both of those to one QuickBooks file.
You know, I would have to test that. Clearly, you would have to use the Revel desktop integration. I don't see why that shouldn't be a problem. The thing about and I'd actually have to test that. But I see no problem really with doing that, because what will happen in desktop is that the desktop will create its sales receipts. I assume that, you know, people are posting in a summary fashion, so we're not trying to, you know, track our non-inventory inventory. And then the cafe should come across just fine in terms of now what it does do on the online is and I don't know if it mirrors this behavior in the desktop, I'll test it, is that it creates invoices, because there's really no way in the online version to have multiple payments, you know, in a sales receipt. So that behavior is different. So you may have a situation where Revel is creating invoices with the payments as opposed to, you know, a sales receipt. But I honestly don't see any reason why it shouldn't work. I would have to test it, though.
And the last question really came from a listener who was concerned about the number of comments they've read in forums over a lack of support or conflicts in support for the product. You want to mention your experience regarding that?
Sure. I actually lost a sale because of that. I had a person that They went online and they looked at it. A couple of things is that as a reseller, we have a dedicated support line, so that helps. The other thing is that Revel over the last year or two has gone from 150 employees to over 500. With that, with anything, even with the relationship with Intuit, there have been some growing pains. I actually went on a website yesterday and just the same one that the lady had pointed me to, and there are now starting to become positive comments. Revel is working really, really hard to get better at their support and to be able to solve those issues. Fundamentally, I actually got to meet one of the owners, and fundamentally they have the same ethic that Intuit does about taking care of the customer. I think sometimes, though, you know, when you're growing that fast, you get tripped up in the processes, and so they've done, I think, a better job recently of handling those issues. And then additionally, if you're dealing with an Intuit reseller, we have additional support resources, and we have a dedicated support line that gets us into Tier 2. But yeah, I'm not going to whitewash it. I had a lot of those same concerns. As I said, I was trained in December of last year. I didn't make my first sale of Revel until January of this year because I had, A, I needed to have a comfort level. B, you know, retail is where I live and restaurant is where I'm moving to until, you know, the product is fully baked, so to speak. And then I had some concerns about some of the support. One of the interesting things about us is that, and me in particular, is that there are a certain number of resellers that have gone and they have focused in, and I've gone back to Revel and done the actual Revel reseller training. And there's this establishment tab, which normally you can't, you know, you get very little stuff in here, but I can log in with my Revel reseller credentials and I can do quite a bit more in terms of troubleshooting and some other things. And so, you know, that's why there's a subset of us that have gone through that secondary training. And so I want everyone to, you know, feel free to feel like, don't be afraid of it. It is getting better. It has been a problem. Everyone's going to acknowledge that. Try and partner up with someone that has that extra level of training and whatnot. I had a client where even the pro advisor, you know, was a referral from a pro advisor, and she said, well, I've been reading Murph's comments. I've been reading, you know, comments on these reviews. I'm nervous. And I said, well, let's just full disclosure with the customer. Tell them, you know, what we know, what we don't know. They still went forward. This was the car wash. It was because it was the best fit for what they were trying to do. And as far as I know, I actually bid implementation time and whatnot, and they've not needed any of it. The onboarding process with Revel has gone pretty flawless. They're building their own menus. There's quite a bit of online tutorials. They needed a little bit of help getting the merchant service account set up. Other than that, they're good to go. So I think it's getting better, but I'm not saying that it's going to be smooth sailing every single time. But it's not smooth sailing for, I mean, we've all had those situations where it doesn't matter what you touch, it just seems to turn to poo-poo. So, you know, I'm not saying that every single time you engage with Revel, it's going to be ideal. What I am saying, though, is that they recognize that there is room for improvement. And in addition, I think Intuit is helping them to drive them to the next level as well, because they're focused more, you know, on the enterprise space. They actually do, there's a number of different enterprise customers that they do, as opposed to QuickBooks is really what we're looking at is for the mom and pop. So I know that was pretty long-winded, but hopefully that answers the question, which is it's getting better. It's been a challenge, but it's getting better.
I think it really does. And Will, I think everybody's very happy with what you've told them today. You've been very honest with our audience, and told them the good and the bad and maybe even the ugly, and they appreciate that. I want to remind everybody that today's webinar has been recorded and will be available within the webinar archives at Insightful Accountant. And if you didn't get enough of today's webinar, you can turn back in tonight at 6 p.m. Central for another live edition of the same topic. So you can get more, Will, if you feel like you didn't have all your questions answered. And we'll see you next week, everyone, when Liz Scott will be talking about the integration of QuickBooks Online with Bill.com, HubDoc, and Canon scanners as a comprehensive solution for your clients or perhaps even your own practice. See you either later today or next month. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Bye for now.